recital. Tonight I'll begin the lecture with an anecdote that compares the pathways of the composers Astor Piazzolla and our featured composer Paul Desenne. Then I will talk about the biography of Paul Desenne and the stylistic features of his music. Finally, I will discuss and perform Desenne's Solo Flute Sonata. Argentinian composer Astor Piazzolla obtained a scholarship to study in Paris with Nadia Boulanger after winning a national composition contest in his country. Boulanger's advice changed his life. She said that if he was looking for a source of inspiration, he had to look back to the music of his own country. That happened in 1956. When Paul Desenne went to France in 1976, 20 years after Piazzolla, he was already conscious of the importance of the music of Latin America and especially the music of Venezuela in his work. But it was there in Paris that he was intermingled with Latin American musicians that were exponents of the folk style. There, Desenne adapted, arranged, played, and wrote music based on these Latin American styles. Before those years in France, Desenne studied music in Venezuela, his native country. He studied cello at the Escuela Superior de Música Santa Capilla and composition at the Venezuelan Institute for the Arts. His main composition professor was the Greek Yannis Ioannidis. In these early years, Desenne organized an ensemble for experimental music named Pie en Ojo, or One Foot in the Eye, which was his first strong statement of an eclectic aesthetic vision. With this group, he performed as a multi-instrumentalist. Besides the cello, he played saxophone, flute, and percussion. His eclectic vision is a mirror of his own life, which is a puzzle of diversity. His father is a French doctor, his mother an American astrologist, his brother is a biologist, and his wife is a Colombian pianist. After 10 years in France, Desenne returned to Venezuela in 1987, and since then, he has had an active career as a cellist and a composer. However, Desenne has been in conflict with the agitated life of Caracas, the main cultural center of Venezuela, and has looked for refuge in the mountainous outskirts near Caracas, where he built his own house and feels an ideal connection with the essence of nature. Desenne has received commissions by ensembles such as the Netherlands Blazers Ensemble in Holland, the Palladian Ensemble in England, Camerata de las Americas in Mexico, the New Juilliard Ensemble in the United States, and by outstanding soloists like Madeleine Shapiro, cellist, Jackson, flutist, Paquito de Rivera, clarinetist, and Alexis Cárdenas, violinist. Among the most important festivals and halls where his music has been played are the Sonic Boom Festival and the Sonidos de las Americas in the United States, the Royal Concert de Pau Hall in Amsterdam, the Recital Hall of the Royal Music Academy of London, and also in Lincoln Center and Carnegie Hall. His compositional output consists mostly of chamber music. The instrumentation ranges from pieces for solo instruments, such as piano pieces, to mixed duets, trios, quartets, and larger ensembles. In addition to chamber music, Desenne has composed 2 concertos for solo instruments and orchestra, one for violin and another for cello. He has also composed 1 symphonic work for orchestra and 2 works that include choir. His production reveals an equal interest for the instruments of the orchestra, with instruments of the Latin American folk tradition and specifically of Venezuela, such as maracas, cuatro, folk harp, bandola, and Afro-Venezuelan percussion. You can see pictures of these instruments on the screen. The cuatro and the bandola are both four-stringed instruments that descend from the Spanish guitar and the vihuela. Desenne has also looked back to medieval, Renaissance, and Baroque times, and has written for harpsichord, theorba, viola da gamba, and recorder. A quote by Desenne will help us to understand how he conceives music. Quote, "I have always considered musical enjoyment as the final, real motive for listening to music. Good dancing, singing, and not only good thinking should be the measures of musical success in serious music." End of quote. Furthermore, Desenne explains that the interaction between the folk and popular genres of South America became a departure for his first serious compositions. These first works were orchestrated for woodwind and string instruments, plus an innovative addition, the Venezuelan-born. This interaction between folk and classical elements is present in different degrees and varies greatly from piece to piece. Is Paul Desenne a composer with a Latin American neo-Baroque tendency? Some features of his music point in that direction. Desenne uses dances, he also uses motivic development and variations. His harmonic concept is based on tonality and modality, and it expands to a freer harmony. The rhythmic drive of his music is based on persistent, fast rhythmic note values. His solo lines show the influence of solo string writing of the Baroque, in particular that of Johann Sebastian Bach. Additionally, Desenne said in an interview that he was motivated stylistically by the research of some Venezuelan musicologists who believed in a direct connection between the folk music of Venezuela and European Baroque music introduced into Venezuela in the 18th century. The flute occupies a special place in Desenne's compositional output. Desenne has composed for the flute in almost every possible format, from a solo sonata to mixed duets, trios, and larger ensembles. Desenne has also written one piece for the flute orchestra, Gurrufío, which we recently played on UNL's Flute Day, and a concertino for flute, cello, strings, and harp. Today I will discuss and perform one of these pieces, the Solo Flute Sonata. It was composed in 2001 and premiered by myself in 2002 at the University of Colorado at Boulder. The first movement was dedicated to the Venezuelan flutist Julio Toro. Desenne modeled his sonata after the Baroque chamber sonata, which consists of a series of dances. Just as Johann Sebastian Bach, who wrote the most important solo flute sonata of the Baroque. Bach used 4 dances from different European countries. Desenne uses 3 Latin American dances, the huapango, the guasa, and the song. Desenne's sonata consists of 5 movements, of which the central is a set of 6 mini-movements, a thema, and 5 variations. The overall form of this sonata is quite interesting because of the use of guasas throughout. The 2 guasas movements, the second and the fourth, are intended to be interludes that contrast with the other movements. However, in the third movement, the third and fifth variations are also guasas. You can check that on your handout, which have important roles. The third variation is highly emotional. It combines all the themes so far exposed in the sonata and in the overall structure. It is the central point of the sonata. In this sonata, the titles of the movements reveal the nature of the music. The first movement is entitled America Divagación, or America Digression. and it quotes Leonard Bernstein's West Side Story, Huapango, I Want to Live in America. The Huapango is a Mexican musical style that consists of a complex mix of rhythmical patterns. Desenne says that his quotation takes the source of the melodic material and the character of Bernstein's song. The quotation is not literal, although it is immediately recognizable. The time signature is different from Bernstein's original, which is in 6/8. The movement begins with a quotation of the melodic shape of Bernstein's melody, but the grouping is in 3 beats per bar, 2, 2, and 3, the third beat being the longest, as you can see. The phrasing following Bernstein's is organized by groups of 2 measures, and the complete theme contains 4 sub-phrases. Desenne decorates the theme with some arpeggiated staccatos and notes that provide to the audience the first taste for variation, an important organizational and aesthetic principle in his music. I will play both so that you can listen to the difference. Original. This is the same. This movement can be seen as sectional, as you can observe in the table of your handout and on the screen. It presents the themes with successive variants. In almost all the sections, there are at least recognizable fragments of the theme that help the ear to follow the musical direction. Desenne chooses specific rhythmic values for each section, like 8 or 16th notes, or a combination of 2 values for each section. On a large scale, the sections represent contrasting ideas that nonetheless are related harmonically or melodically to each other or to the main theme. For example, section 4, or block 4 as I wrote on the score, consists of arpeggios alternating with fragments of the theme. For this section, the arpeggios are used as both harmonic and expressive devices. Other changes in this section are the slowing of the harmonic pace, now more static, and the use of slurs for the arpeggios. Furthermore, he changes the accentuation by starting the phrases on the 3rd beat and maintains the 8th note motion. Then he starts making variations on the melodic line. Sometimes he also includes rests, which add a feeling of syncopation. I will play this for you. The last important feature to be mentioned about this movement is the harmonic element. The original theme by Leonard Bernstein moved from the home key B major to a chromatic 3rd D major, and then returns to the home key. A narrative might be an attempt to go to a familiar place, yet distant, which is frustrated and forces a return. The sense title, America Divagación, suggests possibly an unintended quest, some kind of unexpected adventure, which is reflected in the unpredictable, ambivalent and often surprising changes in the harmony. The guasa is one of Desenne's favorite dances. It is a folk dance in 5/8. The guasa contains complex polyrhythmic patterns and features brief syncopations and intervallic leaps. The lyrics to the music are funny and picaresque, and in fact people say in colloquial Spanish, there is a guasa, meaning that someone or something is a joke. Let's listen to the Guasa del Borrachito, or Guasa of the Drunk, a guasa that Desenne wrote for a mixed quintet and which is closer in style to traditional guasas. You will notice characteristic elements such as intervallic leaps, syncopations, and rests that break the rhythmic patterns within a 5/8 meter. The second and the fourth movements are based on the guasa. Both describe musically the croaking of frogs in the tropical mountains. The title of the second movement is Guasa Charcosa. Charco means a small pond that is produced usually after a rain. A recognizable leap that identifies the croaking of some tropical frogs is the interval of a major seven. In this movement, the very first interval is precisely that one, C to B. And in fact, major sevenths pervade both guasas. Another feature of the guasa is a kind of hiccup, a break in the rhythmic patterns by including rests on strong beats of the melody, usually the first 8th note of the measure, which displaces the rhythm and adds a syncopated flavor. The melodic shape of this guasa moves up and down by large leaps, representing the agitated and somewhat disorganized croaking of the frogs, which is enhanced by dynamic swells. Another musical description of the frogs croaking is the use of 16 notes, placed graciously at the end of some phrases. Unexpectedly, the 3 last notes of this movement are stepwise and diatonic. The fourth movement is entitled Guasaranas 2. Guasaranas 2 suggests that at some point the Guasa Charcosa was named Guasaranas 1, and the meaning of Guasaranas is equally applicable to both, since ranas means frogs, and both are guasas which describe the croaking of frogs and their environment. Guasaranas 2 is longer and more active harmonically, rhythmically, and melodically. The melodies flow up and down with rhythmic patterns that follow strong and weak beats, creating a more accentuated guasa than the one in the second movement. The leaps also create a complex and ambiguous compound melody. Another description of the frog's croaking is achieved by an almost mechanical repetition of descending melodic figures with slight changes in the upper note. I play this for you. The indication for this section demands ranissimo, which translates very much like a frog. Desenne explains that he conceived this movement as an interlude and that it represents nature and its special temporality that contrasts greatly with the drive of human affairs. The third movement is a set of 6 mini-movements inspired by the theme song of the television and now movie series Mission Impossible. Desenne quotes the theme by the Argentinian pianist and composer Lalo Schifrin and uses the title Impossible Variations on the theme from Mission Impossible. Each one of these variations is directly related to the main theme, and a further sense of unity is accomplished by the inclusion of elements of Bernstein's theme from Movement 1 and the Guasa Macabra in the last 3 variations. Schifrin's thema is not presented in his original version. It is varied but easily recognizable. The meter of the movement is in 5/4 and all the sections of the original soundtrack are present in the same order. These sections are the introductory trill, which originally was played by woodwinds and drums, then a percussive syncopated melody played on a synthesized guitar that we will refer to as the spy thing, and whose rhythmic character is derived from the Cuban folk dance called son and the Argentinian tango. Then comes the main melody, played by synthesized flute. Finally, the bongo plays repeated notes. I hope you will recognize this thing. That's the first trill. This is now the spy thing. Now I'll play the original melody by Schifrin. Now Dessenne's version of this theme. And finally the bongo. Desenne gives non-conventional performance indications in mixed languages. For example, in the thema, Desenne asks the flutist to play super cool, and we do that articulation. Other indications are in both Italian and Spanish, and it would be a matter of discussion to know what an allegro argentino or Argentinian allegro means, as he indicates in the beginning of the movie. Two things make these variations impossible: the large and continuous leaps and the rapid note values at a fast tempo. The first two variations are fast and closely related to the Mission Impossible theme. The first is harmonically complex and refers motivically to the spy theme. This variation also maintains the same meter as the thema, 5/4, which makes easier to identify the syncopated aspect of the spy theme. Another recognizable motif is the arpeggiated descending figure that begins the Mission Impossible main melody. In this variation, Desenne writes in Spanish acuareloso, or watercolor line, to indicate one of the moods in the movement. In the second variation, Desenne takes two elements of the Mission Impossible, the bongo aspect and the main melody. This variation is marked at tempo de bongo furioso, or at tempo of a furious bongo. This variation has three different sections. in which the outer sections portray the bongo with fast, repeated notes that alternate pitches, as if playing on 10 bongos. The central section features the main melody, which is fortissimo and indicated subito, seductor, cremoso, and fashion, or in English, seductive, creamy, and stylish. The same also asks for acentos piazzolescos, or accents in the style of Piazzolla, which shows the resemblance of the rhythmic essence of the spy theme with tango music, where the accents in a 4/4 measure are in the first, fourth, and 7/8 beats. Other elements in this variation are the use, again, of the arpeggiated descending figure in the third section, as the screen demonstrates, and the final 2 notes of the theme. Let's move on to the variation 3. The music of this variation returns to elements of previous movements. The meter of the third variation is reduced from 5/4 to 5/8, like the meter of the guasa. And in fact, the rhythmic and melodic flavor is like that of a guasa. What is distinct about this meter is that the same requires a time signature of a 3+2, ensuring that the accentuation will be on the first and the 4th, 8th notes of the measures. But this is a half-truth, because precisely the essence of the guasa is the alternation and displacement of the rhythmical patterns. The same at a local scale breaks the rhythmical pattern with a silence in measure 29, producing the vertigo-like effect that guasas generate. In the central section, from measures 24 to 62, the same repeats the spy theme 9 times, with the melody of the theme unchanged. Notice also how, at a larger scale, he simulates a 5/4 accentuation by placing the notes of the spy theme at the corresponding places, as in the original theme. The notes that are not part of the spy theme create a harmonic well that is related in a complex way to the theme. If you have this excerpt on the handout, the 4th variation is the only slow movement of the complete sonata. It is melodically oriented and contains an implied 2-voice texture. Now the main melody serves as an introduction for the spy theme. Both are recognizable, although the same provides new harmonic and melodic directions, as in the measure 13, where we expect the spy theme to maintain its original shape, but the same uses it to create a bridge for the next section. We find other interesting mood indications in this variation: glacial, subito Shostakovich, and Siberiano, or Siberian. The last variation is a masterful compendium of all the musical elements presented so far in the sonata. I Want to Live in America is here combined with varied elements of Mission Impossible within a Guasa meter and filling in 5/8 or 3+2. Let's check on the first page of the variation how Bernstein's theme is treated. Measures 1, 2, there is a clear melody. 5, measures 5 to 6, the melody, there is a melody and a simultaneous second line. From 10 to 11, there is a melody plus another line with added rhythmic variety. Now let's check the Mission Impossible appearances. Measures 7 and 8, you will find the spy theme melody plus an alternate line. From 11 to 12, the main melody is with a rhythmical variation. 16 to 17, there is a combination of the bongo, the spy theme, and the main song. This variation presents a struggle between the forces of the Bernstein's theme, the Chitrin's soundtrack, and a Guasa. After a first section in which both Bernstein's and Chitrin's themes are combined, these themes achieve new configurations through motivic development. Chitrin's spy theme becomes more rhythmical, enhanced by bongo percussive rhythm, and it will be present in the middle section. Then the Guasa gains a protagonist role. For the final section, the Bernstein's theme is not heard anymore, and the Guasa provides the main motivic material. Oddly enough, the spy theme, now disguised rhythmically with the bongo quality, ends the movement in a piano misterioso. It is worth mentioning that this variation is the only one out of all the variations that begins in a major mode, but it turns gradually into a somber and minor mode toward the end. It also ends on an F sharp instead of the expected G, creating a major 7, the club interval. The last movement is Rancho song. Rancho in Venezuela means a tent and cardboard shack where poor people live. And song is a type of Cuban dance. This dance became one of the most important forms of Caribbean music in the 20th century. The song unites the African and Hispanic musical influences in Cuba. Songs are in double meter, harmonically simple with progressions like 1-5 or 1-4, and they contain an alternation between verse and chorus. The basic rhythmic patterns of the songs have 3 layers. One is given by the tres, a guitar-like instrument, the second by the clave, or 2 pieces of wood, and the third by the bass, as you can observe on the screen. Here's a sample of this music.
Castellano, qué bueno baila usted.
and I'll play the first steps of the sense music of this movement, and I hopefully will sound really good. I hope we should. So this is how it goes. Desenne takes literally the song and uses double meter, strict two-measure phrases, simple harmonies spiced with his harmonic dissonant style, and a highly danceable rhythmic drive. You will also hear elements of the Mission Impossible theme, like the repeated notes of the bongo or the rhythm of the spy theme. Desenne instructs with Venezuelan colloquial language, such as marginal, which refers to the lifestyle of people who do not enjoy the benefits of a normal, prosperous life. Another indication is swing malandro. Malandro is the thief or gang member from the slums of the big cities, whose particular way of walking and talking Desenne refers to. Swing, in this context, is not associated with American music style. Instead, it is employed to denote a passionate, self-assured feeling. Furthermore, we find two more particular indications. An articulation that should be performed dabu-daba-daba-ding, and the last indication, bailando full, that means dancing wild. Desenne says, quote, "The material developed here is almost ordinary, common, cheap. It is stuff for dancing and improvising with the band. The flutist should go into a dance trance here, taking us swiftly through the various tonalities and colors of this song. Tapping and thumping with the foot on the stage is perfectly legal in this style, as well as wiggling like a dancing worm while blowing away." End of quote. I want to conclude this lecture with a final thought about this sonata. Is it possible that there is a story behind this series of movements? We could say that the idealistic desire to live in America, expressed as a guasa or joke, or maybe seriously, can be a mission impossible, even after 5 different attempts, the 5 variations. The result will be of despair in the solitude of the mountains surrounded by frogs, the guasas. But wait, there is always a party and a dance to celebrate the Caribbean soul and overcome depression, the final song. We have investigated one of the biggest and most challenging pieces composed in the recent years for solo flute. We have seen how the composer has integrated elements of his own folk roots within the Western classical musical tradition and made a new sound that considers the old and revalues the modern with a touch of comical irony. Thank you very much for coming, and we'll take a brief pause and I'll play the complete sonata for you. Thank you very much.
if I may.